Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Gersnet Podcast, the independent Rangers podcast by fans for fans, where all the content is absolutely free. Tonight, as always, we're coming to you in association with Forrest Precision Engineering. I'll be your host this evening, Rob Fawcett, and tonight we're going to be looking back at yesterday's disappointing draw against Motherwell, as well as looking ahead to the big European game on Tuesday against Victoria Pilsen. But before that, I'd encourage you to visit the Gersnet website. Not only do we have our main website with a host of quality articles and online museum, but it also hosts our popular forums, which are a great place to keep up to date with the latest Rangers news and discussion. Tonight, as always, we're going to be live on YouTube, and we'd ask that you continue to spread the word amongst your friends and family, share the pod on social media, subscribe to the channel, as well as stop by the forums and join in the chat there too. Now, I need to give another mention to our partners over at Forrest Precision Engineering. They're a Glasgow-based engineering company who have been a big commercial supporter of Rangers and Gersnet for a number of years, and we're delighted to have them supporting the pod again. If you want more information about them, please visit their website at www.forestprecisioneng.com. They've also got a stunning executive lounge in the main stand at Ibrox, and for more information on that, you can email the club at hospitality@rangers.co.uk. Now, joining me this evening are the one and only Mr. Gersnet himself, Alex Anderson. How are you doing, sir?
So it's my fault, is it? Oh, thanks, Rob. I'm absolutely fine. Not as bad as some people might expect me to be. Hello to everybody. Thanks for joining us. I hope everybody had a lovely summer. It's my first time on the pod. I know there's been a few pods out, but my first time back on Gersnet this season. And hello to Ben, who I've not been on with before, but Frankie was just telling us there off air that he's the only one that's actually had an offer in for him. You know, I don't know if it was Rangers Review or Heart and Hand or that, but so we're going to have to up our game here, Rob, or we're out. You know,
Absolutely. And it's a good segue there into going from one of the oldest members of Gersnet to probably one of the newest members of the Gersnet family, Mr. Ben Harshaw. How are you doing, Ben?
Yes, I'm good, Rob. I don't know if we've been on together actually either, and hello to Alec as well. We definitely haven't. But yeah, looking forward to another season, and thankfully Rangers are not as bad as in a position as to be putting in an offer for me. That's all I'll say.
Well, you never know. The transfer window's still open, so there's still hope for it yet. Maybe we might get a game. It's a good segue in because before we jump into the Motherwell game, given it's the first pod of the season together, you can tell I've not got my teeth in tonight. I just wanted to start with what our expectations were before kickoff for the season ahead, and from my own perspective, I think I knew that we were going to be in store for probably a bit of a bumpy road in the first few weeks and maybe even months of the season. There's a massive amount of turnover in playing staff that needs to be done. We've got a manager that's come in trying to implement a new system with some requirements that maybe some of our club aren't used to, which is working hard and outrunning the team. But we've also still got a core of the group that have let down, 2 or 3 managers before them. It wasn't going to be perfect. We still need to win. And I think the fact that we managed to navigate the Panathinaikos game made me more optimistic maybe than I should have been. But I thought that would give us something to build on. So, I think I'll probably get accused of being a happy clapper with the next sentence, but I don't think the result yesterday changes my optimism. While it is massively disappointing, especially that second half performance, and we'll touch on it, there's still plenty of football to make this up. I'd be keen to get your view first, Ben, and then Alex, your view after that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'm probably similar to you in terms of I'll be accused of the same, happy clapper and that, but I think there's just far too much to do for us to be going in there expecting us to be going in winning every single game from the start and romping the league as some would sort of be getting on. But what I'm expecting for this season is progress. Now, I know this isn't easy to hear, but we were miles away from them across the city last season, and what we need to be doing is we were miles away from challenging for any trophy really, other than the League Cup, obviously. But I think we need to be challenging for all 3, getting over the line in one. But my expectation probably wasn't that we win the league this season. I think given the turnover, staff, players, how we're implementing, I would argue we've probably gone from having no style or philosophy to being so rigid to what we're going to encounter. And that that style, I think, will be good in the end. However, there will be plenty of bumps along the road. So I think as hard as it is, we need to be realistic. Um, he's not. He probably wasn't anyone's first choice for the job sitting here. However, if Russell Martin's successful, Rangers are successful. So I hope he is.
Yeah, no, it's hard to disagree with that, Ben, and I think you're right. I didn't have him pegged as my favourite, but he's in. He's the manager now, so we've got to support him. It's not as if the new owners are going to rip up the plan just because of one bad result, I guess. And Alex, I don't know what your view and what your expectations were for the season ahead. Are you kind of similar to us both, or was there something different?
No, we were 17 points behind Celtic last season. I'm expecting to close that. And I think I'm not expecting to overhaul it when, yet again, we're going to require a massive overhaul at the club. A massive overhaul has been undergone since June, since just the end of the season. New ownership, new directors, new setup in the boardroom, new coaching staff, so many new appointments throughout the club. And that's before you start bringing in a new system tactically for the players and the new players that are being brought in all in the space of 6 weeks or something like that. So what should you expect with that? And I think maybe Rangers historically, especially guys around about my age, were kind of, remember Dick Advocat coming in and him replacing Walter Smith and winning the treble in his first season, but we're not at that stage, you know what I mean? We've not coming off that kind of winning manager into another money-laden phase, although we'll get much more money now. I'm quite excited. I found myself, once I got my kind of initial hysterical, hypocritical, just like having a go at folk who were absolutely loving the fact that we had American owners that we've never heard of before. We don't know it really well. We know enough about, people who were the problems you had with past directors, and yet they were welcoming complete strangers. But that was just a kind of bitterness in my part. It's a fantastic multi-club ownership model. It's as good and as tested as you can possibly get. So I don't know if I'd said it on this pod before, but I thought I don't mean not for a second. It doesn't matter. I want us to win everything always and as quickly as possible. Get up and running. We win in football. I think even if Russell Martin turns out to be a complete disaster, I don't think Parag Marath and Andrew Kavanagh are used to failing. They don't appoint duds, and they won't even be thinking about this. They will obviously, but they'll not be getting involved in this. They've got the structure between them and the coaching staff. They've got in Thelwell, Dan Purdy, even Patrick Stewart's in there as well for 10 years of even if he was getting Manchester United, if he's taken away their glory days and replacing them with Man City, he's still been at Manchester United for all the years and he's going to have great contracts. So I just feel as if we're really well set up and we'll get there. If we were now at that point in time, the thing we've been aiming for since 2011, 2012 was to just get back on a level footing. We're not level footing yet, probably with Celtic financially, but also we've got massive experience at the back. Well, last season we got to a European quarter-final, which was a dream come true for me most of my life, supporting Rangers. We beat Celtic home and away. We scored 3 goals against them at Hampden, Ibrox and Parkhead. So Celtic, it's been a massive problem, Old Firm games for years, and that's not a problem anymore. We had a horrific Scottish Cup defeat, and that was the first time Clermont didn't get us to a Scottish Cup final, despite the fact everything we went through, not even having our own stadium last year. So I feel as if we're on the up generally, but it's not quick enough for our support. But after everything we went through 2012, and this season, I just want to see us get closer to Celtic. I want us to have group stage football guaranteed. He's done that in his first 2 competitive games in charge. And I feel as if there's going to be setbacks and you want them as early as possible so we can do what he did yesterday, which is just use it as a reason to sort out the underlying problem, which is having players in that team that would get any manager sacked.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a really good point because, again, for me, I don't, and this is probably going to sound weird coming from a football fan, I didn't think that the managerial appointment was going to be the most important thing that happened to the club over the summer. It was sorting all the shit that we had and off the field, looking at identifying players that are going to fit a certain style of play rather than just bringing in, unknowns or players to try and give the manager somebody. It was putting a proper structure in place behind the scenes. It was sorting out the other stuff that we'd neglected over the years, things like the stadium, and no doubt the 49ers group and Andrew Kavanagh are going to have a plan, just like they've got with Leeds and Ellen Road, around looking at how they improve the stadium, etc. So that was probably the more important stuff because it had been neglected over the last few years. And you can see with the recruitment we've done so far that it's not that they're backing the man that they've picked for the job. It was always going to be, regardless of who came in, it was making sure that we gave that manager the right tools for the job. Unfortunately, we've signed 9 players now with Ant-Man. The Ant-Man news earlier on today. I think we've only been able to play 4 of them. So there's obviously things happening there that means that we haven't had them all available. But I mean, for me, I'm still positive about the season ahead. Yesterday was certainly the second half was a disaster, and we're obviously going to come and touch it. But I think it's good that it's given Martin the opportunity to see what we've seen over the last few years around certain individuals within the squad and players who don't have the right type of mentality and the right type of desire and kind of fight to actually play for a club like Rangers.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely.
Yep. Sorry, Ben, did you want to come in there, mate? Or...
Yeah, no, I was just going to say as well, if these performances, we know they were going to happen as we're, everything we've talked about, getting in the new style and the new players and so on. But it's better that it's happening almost this early when the window's still open, than happening mid-September when you can't do much about it in terms of personnel. I don't mean it from a tactical point of view, because as the manager sort of highlighted many times, it isn't tactical at the minute. It's personnel, it's attitude. So those aren't things that he can realistically change unless you're going to change the majority of the personnel. So, it is a blessing in disguise, I suppose, that it's happened so early, and we can kind of, as you say, he sees what we've seen for the last few years. His eyes and Thelwell's eyes are open to how big a job this is. I think will stand him and the club in good stead going forward.
Yeah. And interesting, it brings us on to the starting lineup, because I think one of the things that's being used to kind of beat the manager over the head is the inclusion of certain players in the squad. And I think we only made one change for the lineup that started against Panathinaikos, and it was Gassam. And again, I'm going to continually call him Gassam because that's seemingly his right name. The A is silent. Allegedly, Tom on RTV had it confirmed. So if it's wrong, blame Tom from RTV, not me. He came in for Curtis, and it meant we lined up with Butland, Tav, Jigga, Suter, Aarons as the defence, Rothwell, Dio, and Raskin as a midfield 3, with Gassam, Danilo, and Dowell up front as the front three. I think from my own point of view, I don't know if I would have liked to have seen him use the opportunity yesterday to rotate things a wee bit. Aarons ain't a left back for me. He needs to be put in his natural position. I know he obviously doesn't trust Yefty, but there seems to be a massive imbalance when you're playing him, Aarons and Suter on that side, because they both naturally want to come in on the right-hand side. And then the least said about Mr. Kieran Dowell, probably the better, because I think that's probably where a lot of the frustration's coming in for fans, I guess. Alex, when you've seen that team sheet, what was your first thoughts of the way that we lined up, and was there anything that you would have changed?
No, I just thought consistency. He's made one change, and he's only 3 competitive matches in charge, and he's made one change. And I think that's something. Is that not something we were screaming out for as a support with previous managers in previous years? We want change. So we want to stop having so much change in the lineups. We want a manager who's got a clear style, which I've never really understood that kind of that thinking, because sure, we want a manager who's got a style that they understand, the players clearly understand, but I don't want the opposition to know exactly what they're dealing with. But I felt as if I felt a bit hard on Findlay Curtis, but I saw on Wednesday night you didn't see all of the goal that we scored. Obviously saw the finish from Gassam, Gassam. But I didn't see the start of it because they were replaying the VAR decision for Panathinaikos' goal. So it was only in Rangers TV. Like the next day, the YouTube channel were showing the goal from behind the goal from the start of the move, and Gassam getting involved in that as well. It was a wee kind of back heel through the guy. So he's done well. He's done well. But I think Finlay Curtis has done well as well. It's typical of Rangers that we have 2 players that are really kind of going for it in the one position, whereas we've got other players that we don't want to see in that position at all, but there's nobody to come in and replace them. But I think I think he's just trying to make a statement all the time just now. I think that's what it is. It's, first day in the joint, hit the big guy, whatever it is. I think Russell Martin is in there just trying to tell the players this is how it's going to be. I feel the likes of Hefty is probably tactically clueless and he's not doing exactly what he wants. He's got these players in there, including Kieran Dowell, I would imagine, because they get the instruction that he's given. He's constantly talking about how much new instruction he's given to the players to play this new system of his. And I think there's players in there who obviously know how to play it. I'm unsure, the same as yourselves, what's going on with Aaron's being at left back. It's obviously he said in the press conference on Friday, the pre-match presser, he said Hefty's going to have to improve his game. We've told him that, and Yilmaz is at the door basically. So we don't have a left back as far as Martin's concerned. But I felt as if I don't know if it's about Tav, if there's a problem with moving Tav, and I would imagine Tav is taking on all his instructions and working like hell. Behind the scenes, in the dressing room, on the park as well, even if he's still having nightmare moments. So he'll be having trouble dropping him. I just find the whole thing really interesting. I think we're just seeing Martin's thinking, which seems to be right now all about, this is the system and this is what I need for you. And the guys that are going to do it will be in the team. Even if sometimes there might be players out there who could have, everybody say we could have got a win yesterday if we'd played Hefty, who's a more natural left back, and Aaron's definitely had a few bad moments at left back. But I don't think that's as important just now to Martin, as these are the guys that get what I want to do. They're capable of doing what I want to do. I would rather have guys playing out of position like, John Suter, even Raskin being this kind of left 8 role, playing against their natural foot, as long as you get the mate. And I felt as if it was more interesting, the fact that he keeps going with players out of position instead of guys who'd be more naturally suited to those positions. And that it ties in with how he, threw them all under the bus at the end of the game, which is something I think he's had locked and loaded, ready to go from the moment he was watching the videos of us last season, when he first knew he was going to get the job.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, and again, Ben, I'll come to you on this in a wee second, mate. That the fact that he did call out specifically the fact that the reason that players have been playing has been consistency. It has to while they're early in this process, he wanted to keep players in the same position to kind of help them build the relationships on the pitch. But we'll touch on his post-match comments in a wee bit, but you could quite clearly see that he was more than disappointed with a few of them and called a couple out, not by name, but just the fact that they were simply not following his instruction. And I guess, Ben, this is probably where the scar tissue hits for a lot of people, because we as fans probably have seen that over the years where things get tough and some of these players do tend to kind of look as if they chuck it. And this is probably where some of the response has been a bit more vociferous than it would be normally, because we've seen this movie before, and he's decided to give them a bit of a clean slate as he's come in the door. First league game of the season, they've let him down.
Yeah, just on the team, on the starting team, I expected him probably to play the team that he did play. I think basically they hadn't let him down up to that point. Obviously, I probably would have changed Finlay just because a young boy, he's played 2 big games, he's done really well. Take him out of the team, give him a wee bit of a break, and then sort of rotate him in. I think that's best for him long term. But and the impact that Gassam has had so far, I think it was important that he kind of got in from the start. But I think the fact that the likes of the Darrell and stuff there, I think the fact that they had got him over the line in the first 2 games, he was just expecting them to get him over the line now. I mean, all his interviews thus far have been about, we have to win now, by whatever means. And I think he's playing players right now that he has no intention of playing long term. But I know it's easy to say now that we drew 1-1, but had they got us over the line, we won 1-0, we'd be sitting here having a completely different conversation and understanding why the manager did it from that point of view, why he picked that team. So I think it's needs must. And then I also wonder how much of it is a message to maybe to Thelwell. I'm playing here in Dial Hill all the time. I need help. He's highlighting how big the problem is, because from one point of view, I can sort of understand it that he's trying to give a fresh start to all the players and give them chances and stuff. And I don't think Dial is by any means the biggest problem at Rangers, but he just shouldn't be at Rangers. He's not terrible, but he's just nothing to me. He offers nothing. So I think the thing for me is what did he expect? What does he expect from those players? Because he's watched every game of last season. He's watched previous games and stuff. So is he not just getting what they've done? He talked about them reverting to type. Now I think it is important. We've heard managers talk previously and saying, "Oh, there will be changes, there will." But now we need to actually see these changes and see that I gave you a chance, you reverted the type. Now he's talked the talk, but he needs to walk the walk, and he needs to really make changes. And that's why I think at this minute in time, it's very hard to judge the manager, because he is working with one arm tied behind his back, because he has these players that should be nowhere near it, and that we are struggling to get rid of players at the minute by the looks of things, which in some ways is a surprise, and then in some ways, having watched us for the last few years, isn't a surprise. So I think the pressure, rather than the pressure being on the manager right now, I think the pressure is really on Kevin Felwell to get these deals across the line, get some players out so that we can get the quality in that we need. Because there's no point in judging. We talked earlier about getting all the structure, getting everything right, and that's to allow the manager to succeed. And I think that was the most important thing that we did at the start of the summer. But equally, he can't succeed if he doesn't have the right tools on the pitch to be able to play the football that he's been brought in to do, to win that he's been brought in to do. So I think it's Kevin Felwell who needs to get these deals over the line. Obviously not sell players like we did last summer at less than their value, but we need out to bring in. And that needs to be massively important right now. And the fact that we're basically playing without a left back, and we're trying to qualify for the Champions League is very poor at this stage.
Yeah, and interestingly, Martin made the point in the presser that nobody's bidding on our players. The only bid that the club have received has been Dessers. So for all the talk of people being interested in Ben Davies, we hope that maybe Birmingham will come back in for Dowell.
He did clarify, though, Rob, that he meant players within the squad yesterday. So I think Ben Davies is part of it. But but yeah, that comment. Sorry to cut across you, but that comment where yesterday about us only having Dessers the only bid. That was actually the most concerning thing out of yesterday for me, rather than the result. That concerned me, because we need to be getting rid of players to bring in players.
Yeah, yeah. But again, I think he also did say that it looks like the board are going to sanction the signings without having to get it, but we can't keep signing players without getting rid of them, because all it does is inflate the wage bill and continue paying players for the sake of it. I think I'll pick up on the point you made and come at you, Alex, on it. He was obviously very, very vocal about the self, what is it, the too much ego and too much self-preservation, I think he said, with some individuals. I think as fans, it's something we've been saying for a while. But for me, it was actually surprising to hear a manager mention it in public so early on in his managerial career at Rangers. Like Ben said, the problem now is unless he takes action, then he's going to lose a massive amount of credibility, not just with the fans, but also with the players, because that was effectively a pull your finger out, do your job, or you're not getting in the team type message to them. So if he doesn't drop a couple of individuals or change it up a little bit for Tuesday, then he's already lost probably the point by playing that card so early.
But it won't be personal. I thought that was brilliant. The bit where he just he's like absolutely chucking it. They're a total disgrace. You know what I mean? Will we be dropping them for? I will, but it'll be personal. It'll just be a professional decision. You try to kind of maintain his stance of it's all business. I think I'd like to believe. I mean, clearly, like the kind of big pluck you've got in your chin, on a hot summer's day while you're having a fish supper and then a cornetto after it, it's coming to a head really, really quickly. This thing is just going to explode, because my only hope is it's meant. It's a tactic. It's deliberate. I can imagine. The other thing I forgot to mention, of course, is that every supporter or every podder of any of the clubs that Russell Martin has previously been head coach of has been on during the summer telling Rangers supporters it will take time. It will take time. And Leeds fans talking about Parag Marath, our vice chairman's their chairman, saying all these appointments will underwhelm you and they'll start slow. and it'll be 2 or 3 months down the line before you suddenly realise the genius of it. I can't imagine that Marath and Kavanagh, and certainly an appointing Thelwell and Purdy, they don't know exactly what's going on with our squad. They've had the whole time that Barry Ferguson was there to analyse. They didn't officially take over until June, I don't think, but they will know that there's dead wood in there that needs cleared out, and that'll be part of the conversation with Russell Martin. And the one thing it maybe requires, a guy who's played for Rangers for 6 months, played for Scotland, but to all intents and purposes, his whole life's been in England. But it's a British guy, a guy who knows the British game, what's required in Britain, and he will know who's got to go, who's not going to cut it. And I would like to think that this is, he's been watching these videos, he's been watching the games from last season, and he's seen where it starts to go wrong. He's seen who's been the problem, and he's thinking, I'll go in there and get this sorted out. That needs to be, I'll need to get an opportunity to clear them out, to get them gutted, and just tell them you're out, or, you start toeing the line or else you're out. And I think he was building up to all his press conferences. We got this thing that Rangers fans, being so many of our fans are kind of anti-21st century, suddenly seem to want to live in the 1970s again when they weren't even born then. But they hate anything. Oh, he's vegan. He's done a bit of Buddhism. He's done a bit of meditation. That's it. He's going to be. He's not going to get this job. He's not going to understand what it's all about. He's not hard enough. But although he speaks kind of monotone, he has been simmering this low level kind of intonation he's got. All his press conferences, he's snapping the face off all the reporters before they can get the question finished. If it's one he's got a wee problem with, he seems to be bubbling under, ready to rock the whole time. And I think, I'm imagining this, I'm just making this up, but to me, I'm thinking he's ready to go. He's been waiting for the moment. And he mentioned yesterday that when he's in training, they've been away, didn't he, Burton upon Trent and all that as well. A lot of the players aren't liking the rules. They aren't liking basically the regime that they're imposing, the discipline off the park. They're kind of mumping and moaning about it. So I think he's been waiting for that moment. New manager, right, sort this out, and he probably knows who it is that's got to be sorted out. So I'm hoping it's all kind of pre-planned, because he wants to dominate on and off the pitch, it seems. And it's high risk on and off the pitch as well. His tactical blueprint and his management or head coaching blueprint, which is, it's quite a thing, as you say. We've got this big game coming up on Tuesday. You're limited with the European squad as well, probably, and you're saying, I'm basically sorting this out, and I'll get rid of MD who's no good. He'll probably come out on Tuesday before the game and say they were really good in training. They really responded. So he can use that to hardly drop anybody. But it's a high risk strategy, and I don't think any Rangers supporter can really moan about it, because certainly our louder supporters, our more knee jerk supporters over the last few seasons. Sick of Tav coming out and apologising and saying it will get better. Sick of Clement coming out and trying to polish a turd every time. They've had the head coach has come out, and he was more of a manager than a head coach ever yesterday. It was pure statesman-like stuff. It was kind of, he's not in the same league as Walter, but that's, if we're using that as the example of the ultimate in terms of managing the entire club and the attitude there, he was getting towards that yesterday. Whether he's attempting that anyway, whether he can pull it off or not remains to be seen. But it was like, it just wasn't good enough. He's angrier than the supporters almost. And I found that pretty refreshing, but also quite exciting in the truest sense that this might go wrong for him. But we'll find out really quickly. It's going to have to go. It's going to have to improve really quickly. His style is going to have to start being adhered to by all the members of that squad, or else it'll be Martin that goes. So it's daring anyway.
And I think Ben was right earlier. If we'd have held on 1-1-0, I think the majority of the fan base would have been a bit more accepting, just because we got the result, and in this early stage of the season, it is just about wins. The pretty football and the style that he's trying to develop can come probably at a later point. But I can't help feel that there has been a section of the fan base just waiting for something like this to be able to kind of pull I tell you cared, because he is vegan, and because he's a bit different, and because he wasn't the first choice for most people for the job. Again, I think as we've spoken about before, regardless of whether he's your first choice, he's got the job. He ain't going to go anywhere in the short term, I don't think, unless all of a sudden we go on a 10-game losing streak, because that's probably the only way the 49ers would take action on him. I guess, Ben, just coming back to yourself and putting yourself in the player's position, how do you think they're going to react to that kick up the arse for the manager, and it being so public as well. Because I guess while other managers have probably said it to them behind closed doors, I can't remember many of them doing it so publicly so early in the season.
No, I'll be honest with you, watching football for the last 20 years or so, I don't remember a manager doing it this early in the season. It's ballsy. However, the one thing I would say is, to be honest with you, the players, the ones that he was talking about, they know who they are, and the rest of the players know who they are. And so, he also said, I've said this to the players, and I'm going to tell the players that, so he did exactly what he said. He was honest. So, I think some of them will like it. I mean, at the end of the day, other managers, as you say, have probably gone through them in the dressing room and then come out publicly and defended them. And I think Lamont was defensive of his team far too much when they didn't deserve it. And look, that hasn't worked. And a lot of these players are the same players. It hasn't worked being the nice way. So Martin's coming in here and he's showing who's boss and he's trying it this way. It will be certainly interesting to see. He may lose some players, but maybe they're the players that he is trying to lose. To be honest, anyway. And I suppose another thing that did sort of cross my mind on it was, again touching on this whole, we've only had one player bid for. Maybe some of the players who he is wanting out of the club are dragging their feet due to being on good contracts and stuff, and maybe he's trying to get them to realize how unwanted they are, basically, and hurry that process along. Getting them get on the phone to your agent and get something going. Maybe there's a message there. I don't know. I was pleased. I was pleased to see the manager come out and do it. I was fed up last year listening to come on, talking absolute rubbish, watching a completely different game to the fan base. I would much rather, like, they're human beings, so they are going to have off days. I would much rather be told what the truth is, what I've seen. It's less worrying to realize that the manager does see it for what it is rather than the other way around.
Yeah, and we've got a bit of a game that we need to talk about as well, rather than post match comments from the manager. And to be honest, actually, I thought we started against Motherwell fairly well. The first 50 minutes or so, I thought we actually pressed Motherwell quite well into making some mistakes, and that was kind of where Danilo got his first sight of goal from memory. It was a good bit of anticipation by Suter, who pressed up right into the middle of the Motherwell half to win the ball from a keeper's throw. The ball breaks to Danilo, and it was a great wee shot that just clipped the top of the bar. I hope I wasn't the only one that looked at that first 15 minutes and thought, actually, I can start to see a little bit of what we're trying to do when it comes to dominating the ball and at least pressing teams a bit more.
No, I think that there's been passages of all three games so far. I don't take friendlies because don't show me enough for the training games. But there's been passages of all three games where I have seen what he's trying to do, and I have, when I've seen that, I have liked it, and I've been able to, I've bought into it. It is going to require patience, but there's been definitely passages, and that move you referred to was a really, really good one, and the technique for the shot was fantastic, actually, from Danilo. But shame he didn't do a whole lot else. But yeah, that's another story. But and then there was another move playing out from the back, and again there'll be mistakes with this, but there was one where Rothwell put a beautiful flick pass round the corner to Tav, and it was as if they'd been playing together for 5 years at that point. So there is evidence of what's being worked upon, which is something I could have questioned all of last season. So I am seeing the makings of a team. It's going to take time. It's going to take a hell of a lot of patience, which is something that we're challenged when it comes to. But I do think that the seeds are being planted of where we want to get to, and I'm encouraged.
Yeah, and I guess, Alex, from memory, I think it was actually that press that forced Motherwell into the conceding the corner that we scored from. I'm positive that they made a mistake, played the ball out. Obviously, then it was a decent ball in for Rothwell, and Tav I was going to use the Martindale Tav does what Tav does. But yeah, he got on the end of it. And to be fair, great header. The one positive, I guess, from that first half is that first domestic game and we score a set piece goal. And I was thinking, this has been a fairly good start to the game. It's something that we could build on.
And the captain gets the goal. It was great. I thought it was actually really exciting. There was two times yesterday, and it wasn't just because the tea time kickoff means I can't get my dinner properly, that my stomach was kind of fluttering. It was the moves that were putting together. You could see, as Ben was saying, you're starting to see what he's trying to do. And I'm thinking, this is exciting. Is this actually... I'm saying to my wife, Mother, they're doing that gegenpress. Is this the gegenpress? They're doing here. It seemed to be when Rangers were passing the ball a bit at the back. It's really risky. We've all been mumping and it's really risky, that thing of passing the ball about the edge of the inbox. It's just inviting pressure. Risk is what they want. That's what they want. It's like they're doing it on purpose. And I've been trying. I'm not very good when it comes to the tactical chat. I don't have the language, so it's kind of difficult. So to actually, I've picked up wee bits here and there, just enough to get me in trouble during the summer as to what he's supposed to be wanting to do from people that know what they're talking about. So to see yesterday in action, because I think we're talking. Ben's mentioned the friendlies there, which reminded me of a point I wanted to make. I think he just used both the friendlies in front of a crowd at Ibrox, again showing that kind of ruthless side. Proper in Leon King, you're starting central defence today. And you have no right, because I know what you're going to do. We're going to be 2-0 down after 17 minutes, so you cannot be banging on my door. You cannot. I mean, he's had to use Leon King in the European squad, but we'll never see Proper again. I don't think we'll see Leon King again. And he's done the same. Anybody in the fringes who's going to be coming to me, hefty and what that, mumping and moaning about how they were in the squad last season. They were first team players last season. So what? I know exactly how bad you are or how you don't fit in. Have the whole first hour against Middlesbrough. We're 2-0 down. I bring on the boys I want to play, but that's it. It's two each within half an hour. So I feel as if he knows exactly what he wants, and I feel that inviting the players on the move that Ben was talking about where Rothwell. I think Neil McCann tried to make it Rothwell was lucky. It come off the back of his shin.
Yeah,
but it was electrifying. And I think when we did make mistakes, the Motherwell players were almost nicking the ball off our toes. There was no standing about from the defence going, oh my God, I can't handle this new system. It was like, this is what we want. And the way they moved up the park from that a few times in the first half was sensational. I felt as if it was really, it was there, not enough of it. I mean, we didn't have with 5 shots on target the whole game, obviously. And in the second half, Motherwell, who are playing the same system, he's good mates with Askew, the manager of Motherwell, and he's talking about meeting them, whether they're going to a training session or some conference in Bologna or something. So they're obviously studying the same stuff, the same tactics. And Motherwell weren't able to execute it in the first half. It was Kieran Dowell who shut that down to earn the corner. Kieran Dowell shut down. They knew exactly how they were going to come out for the by kick, because we're doing the same thing. You get it to the goalie, your centre half goes onto the penalty spot. You're passing. I mean, it's heart attack stuff for somebody my age, but you're passing the ball to centre half, so you leave the Motherwell players that are running into the box to pounce on that. You leave that's you already broken one line, and on you go up the park. It's high tempo, it's risky stuff. It looks English Premier League, like our kind of version of English, like almost 21st century stuff. But we were better at it in the first half. Motherwell were much better at it in the second half, and that's terrible because they've just been playing League Cup, we've been playing Champions League. They've as many changes as us, and we've got far better players supposedly. So it's not good enough that we allowed that to happen. But I thought the first half was what it should have been, what I was expecting. We're just 1-up. We kind of get a second goal. There's really good signs of what we want to do. But it wasn't. In the second half, it just completely collapsed.
Yeah, and in that first half, you're right. Motherwell did actually play some nice stuff. To be honest, I was quite impressed that they continued to want to play football, which is going to be good for the league, because the more teams we've got playing football like that, then the more appealing the league is going to be to potential players and sponsors, and hopefully more money coming in. And I think the only real opportunity they had was a shot that Butland had kind of spilled, which gave me flashbacks to Butland of last year. But apart from that, we were in a fairly decent position at halftime. We kind of screaming out for any changes, or was it a case of decent first half? Let's build on that and see what we can do second half.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have made any changes at halftime. I expected us to grow into the game, and then I expected us to make the changes to to make a tell towards the end.
Mhm.
But it was just a totally different team that came out second half. In terms of everything, really, in terms of attitude and all too. It just they look like the Rangers of old. Second half, really, which yeah, I suppose when you've so many of the same characters in the play, you're going to get the same finish.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think that's probably the biggest disappointment. I think just to touch on a couple of things you both mentioned. My biggest frustration with that first half was we didn't go in further ahead. I think for all the good play that we had, when it got to the final third, there was just a little bit of decision making that was off. I think there was a chance where Bill played a bit of a loose pass that pushed Danilo wide, and Danilo probably could have taken a bit of an earlier shot, and it got caught and went out for a corner and stuff. So I think while we you could use the word control that first half, there probably was a little bit of creativity that was lacking in that third, that final third. And I think, obviously we'll talk about it in a wee bit, but the fact that we've now completed the Ant-Man signing, Asgard is meant to be in the team, who's meant to be a player that's pretty creative. That should improve. And obviously that lack of a second goal is the thing that really came back to bite us in the arse in the second half. And probably much like you two, I don't think I saw that coming after the first half performance, because I thought, like we saw in the Panathinaikos games, we were pretty poor in the first half and we improved and came out after they'd taken instruction from the manager. And I've seen a lot of criticism about how big our budget is versus Motherwell's and the amount that we pay for players. But the cold hard fact today is, talent gets beat by hard work. And I think that was the epitome of what happened in the second half. There were too many of our players that obviously weren't carrying out the manager's instructions. They were jogging back into position. They weren't closing down the space properly, which meant Motherwell could just really play through us at will in that second half, and we were really disjointed. And I guess is that solely on the players, or does the management team need to take a little bit of responsibility for maybe not changing or tweaking the setup slightly to try and combat the lack of effort of following instruction? I guess Alex will come to you on that one, mate.
I think Russell Martin was quite insistent every now and then. He added that as a wee kind of caveat when he was trashing them all post match, that maybe it's us with the instructions. If it's that, if the tactics are wrong, well, if they work hard enough, the tactics will be it's definitely us that are giving the wrong instructions. If the players are working hard enough, then they're not at fault. It's me. They're setting them up the wrong way or whatever. I think what they went through in Athens, when they went through, no pun intended, but the heat over there, you're John Suter, you saw the way we're playing, they're clearly dying off in those temperatures over there. I think there's actually a wee, not an excuse, because I know we do, I'm just saying it myself, we've got much better players, but I think this is feeding into my idea that he's been waiting for them. He's just waiting for the moment to pounce, Martin, on the players that he thinks are going to let him down. Because I think he could maybe have used that as an excuse, because we had about 5 minutes, 2 minutes, a couple of wee chances at the beginning of the second half where we looked quite good, and then Motherwell are starting to do to us what we did to them in the first half. And I'm thinking that's fine. You take 5-10 minutes off, they're obviously going to have a wee spell. We'll get back into it. And it never happened until, and it's like I was saying from about the 58th minute onwards, why do you always let it happen late? Why do these teams never equalise in the 55th minute, the 65th, the 75th? We always make it into the late 80s before. This has been a thing that happened under Gerrard the first time he went to Fir Park. It's the story of Rangers rebuilding themselves infrastructurally after everything that happened to us in 2012. So this is just epitomised. I think it's just one of those, the night is darkest just before the dawn kind of moments, hopefully.
Yeah.
But there's a bit where Kieran Dowell, and you can see the goal that we can see if he'd kept tracking back further. He does it a few times. I know he's got a lot of stick yesterday, but I think we saw in the first half, he comes firing when he's still in the Motherwell half, but the ball goes to the Motherwell player and he comes in behind him and he takes it off his toes and skips round the front of him. So the Motherwell player, of course, is facing forward. He can't see a tackle coming to him, and he's got teammates that will automatically go forward with him because they want to support their teammate. And when that happens, they are just left completely exposed. So I think the idea is eventually we'll be doing what we were doing in defence yesterday at in the opposition box. And I think we're not going to play such high risk, high tempo, but I think it's going to require a hell of a lot of physical effort and a hell of a lot of concentration as well to keep it going. And we just couldn't do it in the second half. And whether that was, as Martin was clear, it was players reverting to type and just chucking it, so he wasn't happy about it at all. But I felt as if, and then when they equalised, we had a few, Kieran Dowell again, there's a few wee back flicks and that they play in Bajrami and stuff like that. Straight to start the second half, Kieran Dowell puts a ball to the back post. With Gassam has got a chance he could time to bring it down and shoot, but he's a weak ass header straight into the goalkeeper's hands. So I feel as if it was all there. It was all there right in front of us. And it should be like that at this stage of a massive, massive rebuild. And I think it's the scar tissue. They're getting that in the neck. They're getting that thrown at them as well, which isn't a lot of these players are this head coach's fault. It we're hearing this at the start of every season. It's a rebuild, and we keep slipping up. This is 3 seasons in a row. We failed to win the first game in the league, and it's like so they're getting a lot of that as well. But I think I've more faith that this time it's just getting sorted out early doors, and I think we'll get there.
We just need a word that is synonymous with the Rangers support, and we need lots of it in this early stage, which is patience. We're renowned for it. So it's
I'm not having a go at other Rangers fans for their patience running it, because it's brutal, mate. It's brutal.
Aye.
I do tend to go in sometimes about folk are too knee jerk and all that, and I'm fucking raging last night and all that as well. You know what I mean? It's hard to take, but it's just I feel as if we're getting there. I feel as if the last board did really well to get us set up like this. Just generally as a club, and whether it might, I say we're going to find it really quickly. It might not work under Martin, but we'll know by I'd say October. If you went too far yesterday,
you almost feel though if it doesn't work under Martin that we're putting things in place and that there's a system in place for what comes next, which hasn't been there. So I feel so much more positive.
Aye, no, absolutely, and I think you can be angry at the result and angry at the players for that result, but you can still hold optimism to say, well, actually, there is an opportunity for them to change this and still correct the ship or steer the ship in the right direction, for want of a better expression. You don't have to be mutually burn it all down to the ground and be super uber positive that yesterday's result doesn't matter. I think that's where the majority of us probably fall into, is that we're freaking frustrated that we've dropped points in the opening day of the season, but equally it's no the time to then just burn it to the ground and start again, because if we continue to do that, we'll never make a step forward. Ultimately, it might be one step back to take 3 steps forward, and hopefully the players now recognise what it's going to take to play for Martin and his demands, and Martin now realises which players are going to be the ones that he can actually continue to pick and do a good job on him, do a good job from him. I guess you've kind of both touched on it a wee bit with the equaliser from a Motherwell standpoint, and I guess this probably falls into some of the comments that Martin made about his time in the Premiership, where Dowell and Taft probably do have an opportunity to stop that move dead, and we don't kind of take it. And I guess that's probably one of the things where, is a worry that a lot of the fans from other clubs like Swansea and Southampton and stuff said Martin's teams are great going forward, but defensively they can be a little bit lax. And I guess that's another thing that we've shown, certainly against Panathinaikos and a couple of those halves where we're shipping chances for fun. I think it brings home, it's not just the attacking areas where we need a little bit of strengthening. We're probably still going to need another good centre half and a left back if we really want to give Martin the tools that he's going to need for this job.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was a worry for me when he was appointed, with what other fans have said defensively. But certainly, if his weakness is defensive, then we need better defenders than we have right now. But I sound like I'm sticking up for the manager a lot tonight. And in some ways I am, because of how early it is. But also, it's not to say that he isn't accountable for results. Of course he is, but at the same time, I sort of look at it that that defense or that front line. I don't think he would ideally have that front line. I don't think he would ideally have that defense. He's got a right back at left back. The two centre halves are decent enough, but we definitely need. I'm a fan of Suter. I think he has a place in the team, in the squad. But I think he needs competition, and I don't think that is there right now. So I think I will judge him defensively on a more, a greater scale of work, and also on when he has a defense that is his defense, and that So I think we can certainly improve in that, but I think again it's time and personnel, that's gonna make that happen.
Yeah, and it doesn't stop for us, Alex, because I guess we've now got Tuesday night to look forward to, and I think obviously Pilsen came from behind to beat Servette 3-2 in aggregate. Arguably, it's probably the easier tie than the Panathinaikos game. The interesting thing is, I think I read that they had their game postponed to give them a bit more time to play against us. But the good thing is, I think they've just sold one of their key midfielders to Leon as well. So while there's no easy games in Europe, we've got a really good opportunity here to kind of advance, haven't we, into that final playoff round for a Champions League spot.
Yeah, we absolutely have. Yeah, it's a Skoda conspiracy. Skoda, Mlada Bolesław, that's the headquarters of Skoda. And Victoria Pilsen for about 20 years, they were known as Skoda Pilsen. Pilsen's actually the Pilsner lager that was first made. And so I'm a barroom. Everybody knows that stuff, barroom boar stuff. Sorry, but it was just what a great name. Yes, Skoda and lagers. That's what a great night out. Have a few Pilsners, jump in your Skoda, away you go.
It's the one thing I love when you're on a pod, mate, because you always bring out something like this, and I learn something. So kudos to you.
I think I was the last guy on earth to find out that Pilsen is where we get the name Pilsner for it. Everybody else seems to know. I just found it a couple of days ago.
I was talking about the Skoda link, mate. That was
as well.
And Gersnet does not advocate drinking and then driving Skodas.
It does not.
Yes, absolutely. Please drive responsibly if you.
I didn't say I was driving. I just got in the back seat. It was a great night.
Okay. I believe you.
And they played. They didn't play in Europe until like the 2010s. Until 2010, 2011, the first time they won the league. But they played one game in the 20th century in Europe, and it was the first round of the 71-72 Cup Winners' Cup, and they get beat by Bayern Munich, who we then put out in the semis. But they won, and only time we won a European trophy. So it just after all the stuff, the hardcore stuff about yesterday, I just a wee bit of trivia always cheers me up when it comes to European stuff. So I'm looking forward to the game. I'm glad we're in it. I can't help myself. Financially, it makes so much sense. Prestige, we should always be aiming for the Champions League, and we now, because of Russell Martin, for the sake of his progress after the big statement he made yesterday, we need to win and win well on Tuesday night. But I don't know if we get into the Champions League group stage. It's like, was it 150 million Newcastle are wanting for Isak? That's two Rangers, and that's two times 75 million it costs Cavan Maratic. That's just the Champions League clubs. I don't know if I want to go through that again in terms of the group stage, but yeah, it's great. I love the European. It's fantastic for them to go a win straight away in the Champions League. They had their game postponed. I don't know if it's this early stage of the season. Maybe I think that's a kind of bad thing. You want to be playing as many games as possible to get yourself going at the beginning of the season. So hopefully that works to your advantage. And
I think the manager did it because of the travel. So I think they had to fly to get to the opponent they were going to go to. So it wasn't so much about the game. I think it was more they were coming back for Switzerland after playing. They would then have to fly again to go and play their opposition.
Well, so taking that. Just taking the Skoda, take the club Skoda. I don't know what their problem is. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But I'm looking for. That's good. I feel as if I kind of bonus territory, But I think if we couldn't, Victoria Pilsen are probably the same level as us, as I know. Horribly from the 2022-2023 Champions League group stage, because if they'd conceded 2 more goals in their group they'd enter Barca and Bayern, I think if they conceded 2 or 3 more goals, they'd have finished up with a worse I think they're 1 goal better off goal difference than us.
Yeah.
They conceded more goals, but they scored more. So that's always annoyed me. But it's nice to see a new club. We saw Servette before, but they get beat at home, and then they go over there and they were 1-0 down. A cracking goal Servette scored against them in Geneva during the week there, but they come back at them with a couple of goals, and there's a couple of quick sendings off, one for each team, and they get the penalty late on. What's the guy, Matej Vidra, that's been in and out the championship and a few goals in the league. So I mean,
he used to play for Derby, I think.
Derby,
I think he went to Burnley as well, wasn't he? I think
West
he was
Brom,
for a while.
I think he's played for more English teams than our head coach, but he scored one of the goals the other night. I think he's a captain, kind of star man, so he looks good. He'll be dangerous, something to look out for. But if they've sold their star man to Leon, then that's absolutely brilliant. I think it's all about the manager and his relationship with the team and how that thing has worked yesterday. Because I'm not bothered if we drop into the Europa League or if we go through into the Champions League. But it's about Rangers winning rather than the kind of consequences.
Absolutely, mate. I mean, I think getting the group stage, what the Europa League group stage guaranteed was critical. Because again, more from the point of view that's what we're used to. So again, from a and what is it they call it these days, FSR point of view. We needed the revenue. IPSR. I don't know what fucking acronym they use these days for it. So, it's just good to get the revenue, and whether we get into Champions League or not, at least we've got the opportunity to get another couple of ties in potentially. I guess, Ben, given the comments that Martin made about the players post match, what changes are you expecting from the side that played yesterday? Because I'm assuming there's going to be a couple.
Yeah, I'm expecting the same goalkeeper and the same back four. I can't see him making any changes. You can't see him now suddenly bringing the FD in, having not played in the previous round. So I think if any changes, you maybe look at. I think you're looking at Danilo coming out. Again, this is all dependent on that. He said Dessers isn't fit for 90 minutes, so it depends on that. But I think Dessers starts. He praised him and his effort during the week. So I think he probably starts. And I'm thinking maybe Finlay Curtis comes back in and maybe it's hard to know really, because do we have a right winger yet? Probably not.
Breaking news, mate. I know Chris Jack, our very own Chris Jack, I should say, did confirm that we've been given the go-ahead, and by the sounds of it, as long as we get clearance, Ant-Man would be cleared to play on Tuesday.
Oh, he would be, right, okay.
So he's the potential. I guess the other thing would be whether Mikey Moore can make it, because obviously we're still waiting on the international clearance from him because he's 17. So there's potentially a couple of options there.
I think he makes changes there. If he has those options and everything comes through, then I think he will. Yeah. So
I spend the whole
go ahead.
I spend the whole pod sticking up for Kieran Dow, and that's him bin straight away. You know what I mean?
I said when you sign an Avenger, you've got to put him in the starting lineup, right? It's been the transfers for me have been amazing, because we've signed Thor, as I'll call him, Mr. Asgard. We've signed Ant-Man. And then we've got a Jedi Gassam. It's been phenomenal for a Marvel and Star Wars film geek like me to have
Ant-Man in the gas. Someone thought of that. The Ant-Man in the gas.
That could be a different film, but we'll leave that one there, mate.
I know we're trying to wrap up, Rob. Can I ask a quick question, boys? Just genuine interest. I'm always on here sticking up for Tav, so people, if anybody know, they might be a bit upset that I've only mentioned the fact that he scored the goal. He was deeply involved in about 3 different phases of play for us conceding the goal. So it's only fair that if I mention that. Do you think there's any chance? A lot of Rangers fans are lost in after this. I love Tab, but a lot of Rangers fans lost in after this. Do you think there's any chance he's going to be part of the clear out, getting bins?
If it was up to me, mate, I love Tav to bits as well, but I think it's unfair to continue to ask Aaron's to play.
That's adding to it. That's why I'm asking, because that's making it even more likely.
I think he would be much more effective in that right back berth and probably give us more options going forward. I think Tav this season should be used in rotation. He shouldn't be a nailed on starter, because I just think age is now catching up with him. But it's not to say that he still doesn't have a part to play. The problem that we've got is that our Redvan's out of the game. as we mentioned earlier. He's not going to play under Martin. He's been told that he's going to go back to Turkey or whatever. BFD's obviously not trusted by Martin yet to play in that position, so it makes a left back critical to come into the club that can take that position. Because one of the big problems that we had, not just yesterday but against Panathinaikos, is that teams know that Aarons is going to cut back in his right. They know that Suter's right footed as well. There's no natural width to look at, a potential ball up the line into Gassam to pop it back to Raskin to get that move kicked off. So I think if it was me, he might do it. But yeah, he's not been the biggest problem over the last 3 games. Yes, he was guilty of switching off a bit yesterday. And again, that's the criticism that you're always going to get when it comes to Tav. But he was involved in a few decent passages of play. He's always going to be that decisive figure. Fans just have a hard on for hating Tav. As I say, I'll never forget sitting next to a guy when he scored 2 against Dortmund who refused to celebrate. So, it's unfortunately the decisive figure that he is.
Yeah. Look, for me, he's been a brilliant servant. He has a role to play. He should be the club captain. He should be playing some games. But the bottom line is we haven't brought Max Aarons in to play left back, and he hasn't come in for a season. He wouldn't have come to Rangers, I don't think, for a season to play if he was told you're going to be playing left back. So I think had we a left back that the manager likes right now, you may see this rotation, and I think you will. I think it's inevitable, and I think it's good. But I think it's also good to have Tav in there that he can come in to some games and still impact games. Yes, he'll make mistakes, but at the end of the day, he still scored our only goal this season, so we're still relying on Tav to score goals.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. I thought it's typical yesterday. I'm like, that's good. The captain scored the goal, brilliant, and then he's involved in the one we concede as well. And I'm just like, we're just not going to have a good day today, are we? But it's going to be a massive call when it comes. And I wonder if he backed himself into a corner, Martin, by we know that we've got to get Aarons in at right back. But then to drop Tav for this game, for example, coming up against Pilsen, would look like he was part of the crowd of players that he was calling, useless. It's a difficult one, but it's interesting. That's good, boys.
I think he's got a natural get out of jail free card there, because he's obviously had on record that he doesn't trust Jeffrey yet, and he hasn't played Jeffrey at all in that left back berth apart from what they came on against Panathinaikos, didn't he? So I think there's a natural get out of jail card there where he's trying to build relationships. So that back four, like Ben said, probably will stay the same. I think it's more in the forward areas that, the likes of Dowell, Danilo are 2 that I would expect to drop out. I think we obviously haven't touched on it. I thought Diomande was pretty disappointing yesterday. I think the boy is hugely, hugely talented, but there are too many games where he kind of goes missing in the league, unfortunately. But I think he is a phenomenally talented player, and if he can improve upon that, he'll be a great asset. And I was really hoping that Martin coming in would unlock the best in him, but his first test he failed yesterday. So I wouldn't be surprised if he was a player that dropped out. I know there's a lot of talk about trying to switch and put Raskin back in the 6 and move Rothwell further up the pitch, which is where he kind of played at Leeds, I believe, last year. So who knows who he could have been talking about, because there was so many of them in that second half yesterday that just did not hit anywhere near the performance level. And it's not that we're asking them to be world beaters. It's the same thing that we've been crying out for the last 3 years. Desire, hunger, run, close people down. It's the basics. We're not asking you to do a rainbow flick and bang it into the top corner of every shot. We're just asking you to go and fucking close guys down and crack your runners when you've not got the ball. No rocket science.
I'm wondering if there was a bit of resistance. He's talking about the bit of resistance he's getting. I wonder. I can't help thinking. I'm not convinced myself that he's getting the best out of Diomande and Raskin by playing them like that. And I don't know if they're maybe resisting it and saying, and that's where maybe some of the tensions come in, because the young guys, they'll be moaning naturally about everything probably. Just kind of mouthing off on that. I don't know if it's a bit of slackness that he's trying to sort out early, but it's weird to be in a situation where you think Raskin's. When we're bombing forward in the first half yesterday, it's electric. He's just got that movement. He's tremendous, but he's got him kind of I don't know if he's getting the best out of him or he's actually annoying him. And I thought it was going to be because Raskin was away. There would be big offers coming in for him, but it doesn't seem to have happened.
No, but again, I think this is the quandary. And I know some people are advocating selling Raskin, and I would be one of them if he doesn't sign a new contract, because I think there's a good opportunity to get money for him this year. Especially, we don't want him getting into the last year of his contract and run it down, etc. It's a big risk for him moving in a World Cup year, because there's no guarantee that he's going to be a starter at the club that he goes to. So, we've got an opportunity, I think, to say to him, sign another year, but Martin, by pushing him and Diamandi out wider, because it's all about rotation, I think, in his system. So he wants them to split. He wants his, wingers to maybe drop into space, them to go past. It is all about movement and creating space for each other to kind of try and attack into. They don't look as comfortable as they were last year, but we never know. It might improve them as a player. The one thing that we've always criticised Raskin is that he needs to contribute more from a numbers point of view. If this is going to give him the opportunity to get into the box and get more opportunity to get assists and goals, that's going to add value to him as a player. But we're obviously looking at the good 6 months that he had last year being a 6 and saying he needs to go back into that 6 role. Coaches and managers who have played the game understand it a lot better than us fans sometimes. And they can see in a player stuff that we don't necessarily see. So it's one of the reasons why I'm not going to shoot him down for doing that, but it does make us look very easy to play through, which is part of the big problem that we've got at the moment, where, second half, Motherwell were just picking us apart, and midfield kind of seemed to get overrun. Interestingly, obviously, praised Lyle Cameron for coming on. And the way that he stuck to his position and does his job in there, so whether that's a direct sort of crossed about an equal deal, then
that
might be. So I think it is interesting. I think that's part of the criticism that he's getting just now, is that he seems to be playing a lot of square pegs and round holes. You've got Aarons at left back, you've got Dowell at right mid, you've got Dio and Raskin playing in a position that they've not been suited to previously. But again, his view is this is for the best. This is the best for the team. So you do it, you will improve as a player, you will get better, but the team will be better overall. And I think that's where we as fans also need to take him on face value as well. The decisions he's making are allegedly in the best interest of the football club. It's not in the best interest of the individual players. And to be honest, we should only be interested in the success of the team, regardless of the individual players that are playing as part of that squad.
Oh, yeah.
That's
it.
So, yeah, interesting one. Good question, mate. You should try this hosting role.
Love my pay grade,
Just to finish off, predictions for the game on Tuesday.
I'm going to go 3-0 Rangers.
Fuck's sake. Excuse me. Did I say that out loud?
Yeah.
I love the positivity, Ben.
I was actually thinking the same myself. I was thinking 3, maybe 4-1, whatever, but a 3-goal win just to get the place rocking, everybody behind the manager, who is actually a head coach. I don't know how many times I'm going to get that right, but I just get the place rocking, and then yesterday worked. The outburst at the end was a controlled explosion, and meant for the good of the team and the good of the club.
But as the manager says himself, we all know Europe isn't the problem for these players. They can get up for these big games, so I think they will, and then we need to see it next week.
Aye. Well, we'll not get into predictions of the Dundee game. That's what just stick to Europe.
I was going to say
that's much nicer.
That's the other problem. That's going to be Scott and Stuart's problem next week. To be honest, so they can have that exactly. I'm certainly not going to be putting a coupon on that for sure. No, I'm sorry. I mean, I don't think, based on that second half performance yesterday, I would have said 3 or 4, but I think a 2-0 like we did Pana at home would be good. And again, it would be good to get a clean sheet and be a bit more solid at the back. I think that progress is all we're looking for, and I think if we can see a bit of that on Tuesday night, we'll all be happy.
Yep.
So Only 10 minutes over time. I want to say a big thank you to my guest tonight, Alex. It's always a pleasure, mate, when you come on. Thank you very much, mate.
No, great questions, great hosting, great to be on with Ben as well. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Cheers, lads.
Ben, great first pod I've been on with you, mate. Thanks very much for the contribution. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yes, I did. I really enjoyed it and learned much from my my co-guests. So there you go. Thank you.
Brilliant. So as well as being live on YouTube tonight, the show will be available on all podcasting platforms, iTunes, Spotify, Acast, Stitcher, etc. As well in the coming days. We'll be back on Friday night with a review of the Pilsen game, and hopefully it's a bit more of a positive result than yesterday, but also looking ahead to our home game against Dundee. As I mentioned, it's going to be Scott Bradley, the host for that one, joined by the evergreen Stuart Weir. Whilst yesterday may not have been the result we wanted, I think there's still a long, long way to go in the season. Hopefully we can get things back on track. But just thanks again for tuning in, watching, and thanks to those that are listening back. Good night.